We got a couple
20 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a new thing we're going to try.
Calling it random access memories.
Random access memory.
Oh,
You want the long one?
no, that's all right.
Yeah, I bring one.
They're like a 50-footer. So,
Let's see, somebody wanted to say something. Richard, you wanted to say something while he's setting up?
Yes, I'm Vice President of SUMCO, and I would like to mention that SUMCO is having a Windows 10 class being taught by Sharon Kiwani. Now, there probably isn't a single person here that wants to know about Windows 10, knowing that Linux is better, but how many of you get Windows 10 calls from friends and family? They know you're a computer expert. They know you just got to know the computer answers, and they call you up, and you're spending all your time answering these questions on Windows 10. You just wish you could get them off the phone and get back to Linux. Well, anyway, have them email SUMCO, S-E-M-C-O, at sumco.org, requesting that they be added to the class roster. The classes are free, but you must be a SUMCO member. They can join at the session. The first class will probably be in February. All the details haven't been worked out. The notice isn't on the website yet, but if they email to SUMCO at sumco.org, they will be able to be signed up for the class, and you will be able to get back to Linux, and you won't be spending all your time trying to answer these Windows 10 questions.
Excellent. Thank you.
alrighty. So, we've all experienced over the years the glories of computing. Computers, as you may or may not know, were invented by human beings, and as devices of human beings, they tend to behave like human beings. They're not exactly perfect. And so what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about some of the ways that machines and the human beings that work with those machines have been imperfect. As you can see. What I've got is I've got a cartridge that we'll hand around. So anybody who's got this cartridge gets to speak. So I got the cartridge. The reason that this is a cartridge for the Atari 800 computers is it's, number one, it's small. It's 8K of ROM. Number two, it's read-only memory. We're not going to try and fix all the problems that you may have had. So it's not, going to be like, you should have blah, blah, blah. Don't do that, because you can't really fix it. One of the problems with this is that if you do, they released the source code. Shepardson Microsystems worked on this at one point, and they released the code to Atari with a bonus. There was like a $1,000 a week bonus beforehand. And so they got it done early, and they enjoyed their vacation and whatnot. And there were some bugs, and unfortunately Atari went and masked the ROMs before they could actually fix any of the bugs. So every one of these cartridges shipped with bugs in them, as is detailed in here. The other thing is that these have to be things that you yourself have experienced. I'm kind of breaking this, but I'm going to use this as my totem for why I'm breaking this, because Bill Wilkinson, Kathleen O'Brien, and Paul Lawton wrote a book with the source code for the Atari book in there, and they talk about some of the bugs that are in there. One of them is a great bug. It's print not one, which makes the machine go completely haywire because it doesn't understand how to do not. Anyways, so hopefully you'll have a satisfying solution to your tale. It doesn't necessarily have to be one, but something where the hero manages to save the day would be nice. It should be constructive as well, and it's supposed to be fun. So let's have some fun. Who wants to start? Cartridge away.
And keep in mind, we've got about 12.
We've got about 12 minutes, so I will be very ruthless with the short.
12 minutes.
Oh, that's 20 minutes
More,
story.
I guess you call it a story of the human condition. I used to work at Bell Labs, and we were dealing with runtime systems, peripheral control, so real-time systems. Anybody who's used a phone, I don't know if you know, you're talking actually to a computer on the other end called an ESS every time you make a phone call, dial numbers, etc. And like any computer, it had problems. Because it's real time, it was hard to diagnose. So one late at night, usual time, I and a friend were dealing with a particularly difficult problem, and it was intermittent. It was only showing up very quickly, so we were having a very hard time diagnosing it with our literal voltmeters, which is what was available. So we put in a buffer system. Now a memory buffer where when the condition was triggered, it would start recording data into memory. Seems like a good idea, right? A simple debugging buffer. Of course, we'd been told we weren't supposed to do this, but we did it anyway. It was late at night, we were dead tired, we had to solve it. Anyway, we had been talking about THX 1138 of the Halls, which, for those of you who know, that was one of George Lucas's early films. We didn't know the exact size, couldn't analyze it, so we picked a buffer of 1138 hex bytes. Everything in the Bell Labs ESS is done in hex. So we put it in with a length of 1138. We knew that'd be about right and it would be safe, good enough to get our data and small enough not to cause a problem. Okay. Easier to get forgiveness than permission, we left it in and used it quite a bit. Okay, years later, I was no longer working at Bell Labs, but I came back for a visit and got shown into one of these labs where they were doing the things. They asked them, you know, it's real time, how do you solve the thing? They told me they had this fantastic tool that the person that was had never seen before, but wonderful idea, where it would, upon condition, start recording data into a buffer in memory. And asked him about this. Told me, among other things, it was 1100, what its length was, or asked him what its length was, and I forget what he told me, but whatever corresponds to 1138 in decimal. Said, how did that number come about? Seems an odd number. And he said, well, obviously it had been well researched. Somebody had done some amazing analysis. He didn't know what it was.
All right, pass it along.
So I'll make this the short version. 2 months ago, working in the Ford World Headquarters campus, the lights dim. You think, okay, it's the big equipment. They're building a new building. They've got these huge machines running out there. And the lights dim again. I said, well, I better check the computer. And I go back there, and the lights are still on. Everything's still good and all that. And I go back and start talking to one of the admins for the lab, and he says, yeah, they could smell smoke in the basement of the headquarters and stuff. I said, okay, I think I'll go turn my systems off, you know. So I go turn everything, you know, in there working, and, you know, working there for a while. A guy walks in and says, well, you know, everybody's evacuated out of the building, right? And, oh, no, I didn't. Oh, and then they came back in, and everybody's been let go. They're going home for the day. So basically, you know, brought the systems down and all that stuff. So one of the good things to do is make sure that your communication process for your disaster recoveries are well thought out.
And include people who actually are involved with it.
With or without power.
All right, who wants to go next? All right, I'll find the company then. So I managed to save my company money twice in the pager system. So picture, if you will, a ticketing system, and picture that prior to maybe about a month or so, we got new pagers. We got a new pager system because it was going to save us money. And picture my boss telling me to page him with every one of the tickets that were in the system. He didn't necessarily mean every one of them. He wanted like a sample of them. So I unfortunately did not get the memo that he just wanted a sampling of them, and I paged him with every single ticket that our group had had, which was in the a lots. And funnily enough, about, say, a couple weeks later, we changed paging systems back to the old paging system because it was going to save us money. Anyone?
This happened about 4 or 5 months ago. My big customer out in New York has 140 users. It's a medical practice. They've got about a half a terabyte Postgres database. Lots of servers, lots of different kind of servers, lots of vendors in this organization. Lots of people. It's a mammography clinic. They've got lots of like Siemens is in there, GE is in there, Kodak is in there. Lots of people's putting X-ray machines in and stuff. And we interface with all this stuff. The IT, I don't live in Rochester, New York. I live here in Michigan. The IT guy out there, though, one of the vendors asked for an IP address so they could plug their workstation into the network. And he gives them an IP address. Unfortunately, when the guy set up the workstation, he didn't type the IP address correctly. And he happened to type the same IP address as the database server. So now, imagine all 140 users at their workstations trying to run the application, no longer able to talk to the database server. It's kind of important.
Just a hair.
Everybody was panicking. I logged it, they call me. Something's wrong with my system. They
Doesn't work.
can't talk to the system. So I start looking, and I don't know what made me think of it, but immediately I thought, well, let's SSH to the database server. And I could SSH into the database server. And then on another screen, I wanted to go in again. I go to SSH to the database server, and now I can't SSH into the database server. I tried again, and I can. So now, like, alternating, I can get in, I can't get in, I can get in. Well, I don't know if you guys have ever seen what happens when two systems claim the same IP address, and the switch doesn't quite know what to do. ARP starts going crazy, and you start getting this flip-flop where sometimes you have an ARP entry for your workstation or for the machine you're interested in, sometimes you don't. But once I found that something else, you can run ARP minus L and it will give you, or ARP minus A, L or something, it'll give you a list of your ARP table. And I was looking at the ARP entry for the database server, and sometimes it came up with one IP address, sometimes it came up with another IP address. Something's going on with, somebody plugged the machine in. So I got on the phone and, somebody just assigned a new IP address to a machine, or somebody put a rogue machine on the network, and instantly the numbers were off by one, the database server and this other machine that they've been allocated. Not a fun
Yeah.
half hour. Who's got one?
Mike.
Did you have one?
I got a quick one, go for it. This is really gonna date me, but years ago I worked at a large university in IT, and this was in the days of BSD Unix. And every, once a week, this one specific machine would have a disk crash. Couldn't figure out what was going on. This was in the days of, 2 megabyte large spindle things. So this went on for like 3 or 4 weeks, and we couldn't correlate it with anything. It kept replacing the disk. Finally, and it would always happen within this 2-hour time span, Wednesdays at like 11 p.m. So I got tired of just trying to figure out what's going on, and said, oh, okay, I'll just hang out, watch the system. So about the 4th time, online, at the office, oh look, it just crashed, right in the right time window. Can't figure this out. I'm like, I got to go down to the server room to reboot. I go down to the server room. There's a janitor with a vacuum. That he vacuums and polishes the floor every week at a certain interval. So I'm gonna get right around that server really good. That machine room was so clean in that area.
This is kind of on the idea of think twice, check twice. Some years ago, I was working in a not-to-be-mentioned company that they were going to do DR testing. And they decided, well, since we had built this new DR center, we will use that. So, fine, they got everything ready. They said, what we're going to do is we're going to do a test of it. If this side died, we'll bring up this side. Fine. So they moved everything over. They had everything prepared. And they shut this system down. and figured, okay, great, we're working on the other system. Well, what they forgot to do when they set up the other system is plug in all of the batteries to keep it running until the generator kicked in. So, which wasn't a big deal, but when they brought all these down, somebody in maintenance decided, well, we're gonna do some testing on the generator. Since it's down, we don't have to worry about it. So they had the other system running and they lost power in the other system. So basically they lost both sides at the same time. Nobody had checked, because it was a new data center. And everybody's like, let's use it, let's test it. Nobody checked. Nobody had looked and said, are the batteries plugged in? Everybody assumed it was tested. Like I said, just check twice.
Pass along.
Has DD been covered? Anyone screw up with DD?
Love that.
Enough said.
Well, I'm prone to making mistakes when I'm in a rush. As tonight, I forgot my hearing aid, so I can't hear a damn thing. Okay, but getting ready for Thanksgiving. First time the family's been together for 20 years. I mean, everybody. Children, kids, grandkids, what have you. Getting the house ready, got the rooms finished, didn't start any other new rooms. The last thing I wanted to do is set up a computer that the grandsons can use. That's one of the things they look forward to, is that they got free use of the computer. Okay, so I figured, I fired up the system that I normally use. I couldn't remember the password to get into it. I said, oh, no problem. I'll just copy a copy of Linux Mint onto my one of my USB dongles, and then just start up, load up the computer for the kids to use with DB, with Linux Mint, which they're used to. So what do? Last minute rush, I'm on 4 hours of sleep. I get on my computer, I put in the USB dongle in the USB slot, and I type in DD,
May I have your attention?
and then the Linux Mint, wherever it was,
The library will be closing
destination,
at 9 p.m.
OF equals /dev/SDA. Meant to do SDE. And of course, that wiped out the first 1.7 gig of my hard drive. All my, no access to the files. I did manage to write a program that looked at the first line of in other words, a ext3. I'm not sure if I have an ext3 or ext4 on the drive, but either way, one nice thing about ext3 or 4 is that it tries to minimize fragmentation as much as possible, which is really a godsend, because I have, as far as binary files, forget it. There's not enough, I can't piece together binary files, but text files, I just put in the first line of the program and had it go through each and every 4K block in the system, and I was able to do a file recovery that way. So it worked out. But primary file, no.
Anybody want one? Want to do one more? One more.
I can do it real quick.
All right.
I'll start off with saying what's probably obvious, which is RAID is not a backup. I used to work for an educational software company, and one of our clients, we started putting in mirror RAID systems on our servers. One of our clients' site decided, well, it's rated, we don't have to worry about doing backups. Well, let's see, it was Monday, and Wednesday was the finals, when finals would start, and the RAID controller decided to write random data to the entire hard drives.
Oh, man.
The nice thing is, I reminded him, please turn to page 4 of your contract, we do remote backups. So, safe, but let's not do this again.
Yeah. So you saved the day anyway.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's a good application for a random number generator.
I don't think they wanted that.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. There are cards over here. If you want to fill those out, let us know how we did.